Number 1, be aware of your triggers. Most people don't usually start comparing themselves with other people out of nowhere. Usually something caused them to start comparing their situation with others. It can be seeing other people's social media posts or listening to a friend's story about their vacation. It can even be driving through a rich neighborhood during your commute. Whatever the case may be, you should try to avoid whatever it is that will cause you to look at your life through the lens of what other people have. Decrease the time you spend on your social media to avoid seeing these picture-perfect scenes, or change your routine to minimize being exposed to certain activities. If need be, you might even want to rethink the people you spend your time with to avoid constantly comparing your life to theirs. If you find yourself fixated on your timeline, endlessly scrolling and viewing other people's lives, it might be time to stay off social media. Most people post their best moments on their feed. They rarely ever post their worst moments. Yet when people look at these pictures, they're actually comparing their worst moments to their best. A very unfair comparison. Seeing these social media posts can trigger some of the worst self-hating moments that can only lead to terrible things. If you find yourself constantly comparing yourself to these people's highlights, it's time to uninstall those apps and use the time to focus on yourself. Number 2, all that glitters is not gold. Often we are so taken by the outward appearance of someone that we forget that sometimes it doesn't reflect the inside, intentionally or not. Everyone cultivates an image of themselves through their social behaviors, the way they present themselves and what they decide to share with the world. Remember that social media photos are but a fraction of a person's life. How they act in public may not be how they act in private. Unless you're very close to someone, it's impossible to know their true situation. Someone who constantly posts photos of their material wealth might actually be unhappy about their relationships. Those who choose to only tell about their vacation adventures might be struggling at home. If you find yourself comparing yourself with someone else, remember that you don't know their whole story, and maybe you're actually doing better than you thought. Number 3, be grateful. It's easy to look at someone who lives in a mansion with a pool and compare your modest home to theirs. By doing this, we can forget about the good things we have in life because we're focusing on what we don't have. Your apartment might be small, but you still have a place to call your own. You might not be rich, but you're living relatively comfortably. When you find yourself comparing your life to others, take the time to look around you and be grateful for the things you already have. Having the luxury of being able to afford these things is nice, but remember that they're not necessary to your life, let alone for your happiness. Number 4, accept where you are. When you think you're lacking in one thing or another, you'll start to compare yourself with others. When you see what others have, you'll think you're not enough. Then the whole cycle begins again. It's an endless cycle that will leave you miserable. So we need to remove one of the cogs in the circle. By accepting who you are, you will have less of a tendency to compare yourself. And even if you find yourself in comparison, it won't have as much of an effect on you. Accept that this is who you are. This is the situation you're in, and that there are some things that you can and cannot do. This will make it so much easier to stop the comparison game. Number 5, focus on your own efforts. Comparing yourself with others, wishing for what they have, is a waste of time that could instead be used on other efforts. Instead of scrolling through social media, wishing for what others have, it would be better to use that time to improve the things you have already. What is it that you can spend extra time on? Maybe you can use that time to do some DIY around the house. You can learn a new skill or sharpen the ones you already have. You can put in more effort to advance your position in your current career. Whatever it is, the time invested into improving yourself is a wiser investment than comparing yourself with others. Number 6, embrace your past. Your bad choices, your family history, these are but some of the things that might weigh you down and start yet another comparison game. We will sometimes berate ourselves for our mistakes, blaming them for the fact that we're not where they are right now. This is, of course, a very unhealthy way of thinking. There are many factors, decisions, and pure dumb luck that decided where we are today. Instead of blaming your past, try to embrace them. Think of any mistakes or bad memory as a stepping stone to get you where you are today. Treat them as learning points instead of a thing to be forgotten. When we're comparing ourselves with someone else, we often compare with people who are in the same stage of life as we are. That means they're usually the same age or come from the same background. This then leads to the question, why are they doing so much better than we are? This is a pointless exercise that you need to stop doing. There's no point in wondering about any potential outcome if you had made a different decision. We currently have no way of going back to change the past. So dwelling on the past decisions will lead to nothing. Instead, focus on your present and accept your past as a lesson for the future. Number 7, the best is yet to come. Humans tend to focus on the here and now. We forget that there is a future that can be shaped however we want it. Where you are right now is just a small snapshot in your hopefully very long life. If you aren't very happy with where you are now, who's to say that it won't become so much better in the future? There's a high chance that all the people you're comparing yourself with were at one point in their lives exactly where you are right now. The future is a blank page, and you hold the pen. The ending is not written in stone yet, and you're free to shape it how you wish. Number 8, remember that nobody is perfect. Yes, no one is perfect, even the people you're comparing yourself to. But while it does help to remind yourself that those so-called perfect people actually aren't, it's also equally as important to remember that this rule also applies to you. You don't have to strive for perfection. Living a less than perfect life is good enough, as long as you're happy and content. Accept all your flaws and imperfections as just another part of you. In fact, they're actually what makes you more unique and special. Number 9, take your own side. When we start to compare ourselves to others, there's often that nagging voice that asks us, why aren't you like them? Some people are lucky enough to have another person on their side to remind them that that voice isn't true, that they're good enough, that they don't have to be like that other person. But we should all be that person for ourselves. Be your own cheerleader and advocate. When you hear that nagging voice in your head, remind yourself that you're good enough. Remind yourself of all the good things you can accomplish and all the future things you'll be able to do. Number 10, compare only where it matters. Comparing yourself with others isn't always a bad thing. If looked at from the right angle, it can be a positive thing. Comparing your monetary situation on your living condition can be harmful. But if you're comparing positive traits, like kindness and generosity, it can lead to self-improvements. Seek good traits in others and strive to be more like them in that manner. Is this person a good friend? Are they always available to help out? Are they talented artists? Instead of using the comparison game to make yourself feel terrible about your current situation, use it as a helpful tool to inspire you to become a better person. Maybe you'll even inspire another person to be better, and in turn, create an overall better corner of the world you live in. Subscribe so we can continue to make videos like this. Be sure to check out this playlist of my other psychology videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.